Hello, hello, and welcome to the Temple of the False Pod, where the plays aren't optimized, but they sure as heck are fun. I am one of your hosts, Andy.
I'm the other host. I'm Bruce.
And today, well, we're gonna take it even a little slower. We're gonna crack open a pack or two. We're gonna open them. We're gonna talk about their relevance in EDH, and it'll be even lower key of an episode than we normally have.
Andy, what kind of pack was that again?
Double Masters.
Double Masters.
Double Masters.
All right, baller.
Yeah. So with these packs, they are a reprint set. Every year, Wizards has a set where they have a bit higher power. They are generally made for drafting, or with drafting in mind at least. And this year, Double Masters has 2 foils, which of any rarity, and 2 rares or mythics or some sort of combination. 3 uncommons and 8 commons. So this will be an exciting pack to open.
Sounds like a powerful pack.
Yeah.
Get that pack right up next to the mic. Right up next to the mic. We all want to hear it.
Ooh, yeah. Look at those waveforms. Oh yeah. Take your smell.
Nice big whiff.
Ooh, smells like paint, honestly. All right. So let's see how this is the correct order.
All right. So you're slow rolling us here. Is what you're saying. Okay.
We're gonna start with our commons. First up, we've got Orcish Vandal. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a red creature. Orc Warrior. You can tap it and sacrifice an artifact, and Orcish Vandal deals 2 damage to any target. Seems fine.
I think this will make for some excellent kindling.
Yes.
I think if you tear the top in 2 or 3 spots, do the same to the bottom, it'll light up fairly quickly. There's plenty of ink on here. I have found some magic cards are a little slower to light up, but this one I'm pretty confident it's going to go up quick.
And for EDH play, I would say this is almost a last-ditch effort for either Orc or Warrior Tribal if you are just trying to throw things, and I'm sure it fits in there as well. So like Borborygmos, if you just like throwing general things, it could fit in there, sure.
Sure, in your theme, Brian Stoutarm, we're looking for pictures of guys hucking stuff. Yeah, this one definitely fits that bill. Repeated 2 points of damage. Yeah, that's solid in the guys hucking stuff format.
Yeah, and who doesn't love a 2-mana 1/1?
Let's just cut to the next card.
Up next, we've got Elvish Aberration. It's a 4/5 for 5 and a green. Creature Elf Mutant. You can tap it to add 3 green, and it has Forest Cycling 2. So for 2, and discard this card, search your library for a forest card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library.
All right, so right off, I can tell you in Commander, this card is going to be hot garbage. The reason I say this is because this is a reprint. It's been around since Scourge. It gets put in almost no decks. You rarely need Forest Cycling in your deck. You're certainly not going to pay 6 mana for a mana dork that will then tap for 3 after it's been in play for a full round, especially not when it's a 4/5 creature. It's putting a whole bunch of things that could be cool together in a way that none of them really work well together. Essentially, I think for me, this card would basically boil down to spend 2 mana, discard the card, search your library for a forest, reveal it, put it in your hand. And
then play the forest.
Right. Green already does this, and in much better ways. There's just no reason for this. So the fact that you can get a 4/5 creature added in is cute, but that creature also doesn't have trample or any kind of evasion.
And for 4/5, you don't want to pay 6.
No. This is costed from the days of old, like I said, from Scourge, when you paid a fortune for a creature and really just didn't get a whole lot from it.
On top of that, too, if you're relying on it for the mana, it's too easy to get rid of. And then you've already spent a turn playing it, and if it's not there the next turn, it's not. Ugh.
This card is just setting you up for repeated blowouts. You're right.
All right, let's just move on to the next one.
Yep.
The next one, we've got Defiant Salvager. It's a 2/2 for 2 and a black, so already better than the last 2 cards. It's a creature, Aetherborn Artificer. You sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Defiant Salvager, but you can only activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. It's better than the last two, but it's still kind of bare bones. If you are getting any sort of value out of sacrificing those things, then great. The fact that you can only do it at any time you could cast a sorcery makes this card significantly worse.
Yeah, it makes it almost useless right now. I mean, a 2/2 for 3 has to come with an amazing ability, and this is just not the amazing ability. You want some of the cards in your deck that are sack outlets. However, if you can only ever sack this as a sorcery, it means that virtually any time that you would need a sack outlet because somebody's targeting your creature, because you're in combat and it's about to die and you want to get the benefit of something, for all of this stuff, you can't use it during those times. The only time you can use it is basically when your creature is under no threat whatsoever.
Yeah, this feels very niche in the way that this would be perfect if your opponent had no blockers, so either all their creatures are tapped or they don't have any, and if the creatures or artifacts are things like the creature tokens you get from like Woe Strider, so like goat tokens, like 0/1s, or plant tokens, or like it's so niche. Don't use this card in ADH.
Right. I did something similar to this way back when with Oratog. So I used Oratog and Rancor. So the Oratog said, sack an enchantment, gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. Well, with Oratog, you sack the Rancor. Rancor says that when it goes to the graveyard, it comes back to your hand. It only costs 1 green, so you would just cast it and sack it over and over again. So you could ramp it up big and then leave it on the Oratog to give it trample and then charge through for a big pile. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've got an artifact or a creature that you can recast over and over again, like it'll come out of the graveyard on its own and you can just recast it from your hand over and over again, or from the graveyard over and over again, however, then I can see where you'd be using this. But to be quite honest, you're right, Andy, this is so niche. It's just, if that's where you're going, then
yeah, there are more efficient sacrifice outlets that give you more value. There's no way that this is your best card for that slot. I think a 2/2 for 3 is fine compared to the last two cards. We've got a 1/1 for 2 and a 4/5 for 6. This has been the most value in that area in the vanilla test.
In a commander deck where you've got your set of sacrifice outlets, where you've got 5 cards that can sack, because that's part of what your deck does.
Yeah.
I just don't even think this card makes your top 5. I think there are just so many better ways, especially in black, to make this happen. As far as commander goes, unless you're doing the boxing league, I don't see how this card makes it into your deck. What's next?
Moving on, we've got Vidalcan Infuser. It's a 1/4 for 3 and a blue. Creature, Vidalcan Wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on target artifact. If you're doing a charge counter deck where you've got more than one payoff with charge counters, great. You get these for free. You get these for just having a turn.
I am confident that there are decks out there that will be excited to see this. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but that doesn't mean they're not out there, because my brain doesn't really work that way. However, I guess it'll completely depend on how you want to use the charge counters. If you're able to multiply them, what the charge counters are going on. I'm confident that I could come up with a handful of ways. Andy, I can hear you typing away. What uses charge counters?
I know for one, what's the cup? Everflowing Chalice. Everflowing Chalice uses charge counters, which is nice. Everflowing Chalice is a 0 mana artifact with multi-kicker 2, and Everflowing Chalice enters the battlefield with charge counter on it for each time it was kicked, and you can tap to add colorless mana for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. So you get this out with the Vidalcan Infuser. Every turn you're getting increasingly more mana. That's really, I'm looking at a list here of like what uses charge counters. Well, there's a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, just hey, you can tell I'm looking at the start of the list here. Ether Vial, Astral Cornucopia, Black Market, there, Chalice of the Void, Coalition Relic is another nice one.
Mace of the Valiant's pretty nice. It's a 3 mana artifact, 2 and a white, where equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on the Mace of the Valiant and has Vigilance, and you get charge counters for creatures entering the battlefield as well. So that really ramps it up. It's fine if that's like a thing you are searching for. I think this is like a solid creature.
It's going to run well in the decks that want to abuse it.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to abuse it, then you're probably hadn't even looked to run it anyway. So, I think this is cool.
I think even abusing this card, like breaking it to its core, I think it's still like it's good. It's not like game breaking, but it's good. I think it will do exactly what you need it to do.
What is the name of the card that gives you multiple upkeeps? Because I think I'm required to mention that card when discussing something that gives you a bonus on your upkeep.
Multiple upkeeps, you say?
Yes.
I've never heard of this card.
It's a card that you get your upkeep, and then you get to do your upkeep again, which normally speaking is terrible, but in situations like this, it isn't.
It's called Paradox Haze.
Thank
it's,
you.
2 and a blue, enchantment aura, enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's first upkeep each turn, that player gets an additional upkeep step after this step.
Right. Yeah.
So you enchant yourself with this. It's like a nice janky combo, and it's great.
This is sort of thing that's just right up my alley. I'm already half interested now.
Well, you can have this card if you want. You can be halfway there.
There we go.
Up next, we've got good old Peace Strider. It's a 3/3 for 4. It's an artifact creature. Construct. When Peace Strider enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. It's the younger brother to Pierce Strider, which is significantly better, but still just fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to say about it.
Yeah, it's filler in a colorless deck that
This
honestly doesn't even need filler because those decks are amazing, and this is a waste of your space.
Sweet.
Nothing special.
I think I have the other 2 from... I've opened 2 packs out of this box already.
Yeah.
I think I have the other 2. But up next, we've got Urza's Mine. It's a land, Urza's Mine. Surprisingly not legendary, which is great. Tap, add colorless. If you control an Urza's power plant and an Urza's tower, add 2 colorless instead. So for those who don't know, these are the Tron lands. You got Urza's Mine, Urza's power plant, Urza's tower. They all each tap for 1. 2 of them tap for 2 if you have all 3, and the third taps for 3. So together, if you have all of them on board, you get 7 mana. Colorless. They're good. They were reprinted as common, so that's nice.
That is nice. For the folks who weren't around when it was first printed, I was one of the lucky ones who I believe they were reprinted in Chronicles, I believe.
It's interesting because I always thought that they were like these holy grails of Magic where you don't see them anywhere. They have seen a number of reprintings, mostly up until 9th edition, but they felt like these I was going to say artifacts. They feel like you don't see them very often, but they're like $3 a piece. But somebody in our playgroup plays them often, and I want to say
it's Harry.
It's Harry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, look at those! They're so cool, and like they're good. I'm surprised we don't see more of them.
The difficulty is that unless you get all 3, you're getting 1 generic mana. If you're running a colorless deck, that's fine. Then you run all 3 and go that route. If you're running a deck that has colors, a basic is going to be better than one of these cards unless you get all 3. The odds of getting all 3 in a 100-card deck at a point in time when then you can actually use it, and the payoff is instead of getting 3 mana, you get 7. The key with the Tron lands is that once you get multiple mana, that you can then loop it. There are ways to untap and retap and untap and retap to give you limitless mana, and I see where that's going. I tend to prefer to use mine in some of my 60 card casual decks. The odds tend to be a little better that I can actually get them because, well, I can run 4 of each, and that makes things a whole lot better. But in Commander, it's a pretty tough ask, and honestly, if I have a way to search to find a specific land, I'm going to go find lands that are much better than this. There are ways to get a lot of mana with just 1 land, so I tend to lean towards that.
They seem like they would be pretty good in like mono decks, like monocolored, even beyond just colorless decks, because most of the time, I mean, you're getting those land drops anyway because you're not worrying about fixing. So
yeah, Urza's Mine is no Temple of the False God, that's for sure.
Right. Up next, we've got a sorcery, our first.
All right.
Our first non-creature, non-land. It's Sift. It's 3 and a blue, and the text says, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. It's fine.
Yep.
if that's a thing that you want to do. I know lately there's been a lot of synergies with drawing and milling people out. If you're doing any sort of storm deck, this is great. Draw 3, discard 1. You don't have to discard out of those 3. You just discard whatever you have in your hand. Probably going to be a land.
I mean, realistically, you're drawing 3 cards and then discarding the crappiest card of the bunch. Or you're discarding something that you want in your graveyard, which is probably more likely. Sift is going to be run in decks that will offer a little more recursion. Draw your 3 cards, throw something in the graveyard, reanimate it, or toss it in the graveyard so you can do flashback with it or whatever. That's generally the best way to make this work. I like it. The difficulty again is that with Commander you've got every card available. Sift at 4 mana may prove to be a little more pricey for this effect than other cards that would do the same thing. But
this is a perfect card if you already have it, and the alternate is to buy a 25-cent card off of like Card Kingdom TCG Player and wait for it in the mail.
Yep.
It does what it does well. I wouldn't even say that 4 mana is necessarily overcosted, but I think you can draw 3 for cheaper elsewhere. Or you could do more at 4 mana at instant speed elsewhere, rather than at sorcery speed. I think the sorcery speed in itself makes this card kind of weak. It's so uninteractive. You're not keeping up mana for a counter or for flash speed things. You're just using it to dig because you're in trouble.
Right.
And rather than having that answer, you have this card.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got probably my favorite card so far, now that I'm looking at it. It's called Crusader of Odric. It's perfect for a tokens deck, and I love me my tokens. It's a star. It's 2 and a white. Creature, human, soldier. Crusader of Odric's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. So automatically starts out at a 1/1, but if you are using this in any sort of token deck, it will go wild immediately. And it'll be essentially the lightning rod to your deck. People will see it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and try to kill it while your creatures get around.
This is one of those cards that is, it's a great start, but it requires something else. And I really enjoy that kind of a card, because this card doesn't do it all. If this card were a rare or a mythic, it would be hot garbage, but it's common. So with a common, you expect to get one cool thing and then have to work. So Odric's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Great. Now I need an equipment or an enchantment that makes it unblockable, or gives it trample, or does something so that you can take advantage of how big this thing is. Because as you say, if you're running it in a token deck, and honestly, if you're not running tokens, why are you running this card? If you're running it in a tokens deck, you're looking at a creature that could very well be a 20/20, and then it's charging at the line. Well, you're only going to tap it if you either already have a way to give it some kind of evasion, whether it's Rogue's Passage, a standard overrun, or some...
Even if you use it on flavor, you used Odric Lunarch Marshal,
right,
which looks at the beginning of every combat. Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. If a creature you control has first strike, same is true for Flying, Death Touch, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Skulk, Trample, and Vigilance, which honestly, to me, especially in a tokens deck, the best would probably be Vigilance and Trample, and that in itself would be delicious.
To me, you hit on it as you could have stopped as soon as you said flying.
Yeah, that too.
Because, I mean, if you can get a creature flying that's already that big, then there's a good chance you can find an opponent who can die this turn.
Part of me wants to kind of build this deck now. Like, I like tokens.
Yep.
I like Odric because it's just so... It's not a great card, but it has value when you do get it to go. That with this seems very, very nice.
Yeah. No, I can see this fitting.
Whoa, got a funky one here.
Okay.
Up next, we've got Sandstone Oracle. It's a 4/4. It's for 7 generic mana. Artifact creature, Sphinx. Flying, when Sandstone Oracle enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. I already like it so far, with just choosing an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you, draw cards equal to the difference. For 7 mana, it seems a little high, but if you are playing Artifact deck, or if you're playing Colorless deck, you've got ways to get that mana up quickly, or bring the cost down vastly.
All right, so this belongs in my Muzio deck.
Yeah.
With the high casting cost, once it's on the battlefield, whenever you activate Museo, you'll then be looking at the top 7 cards of your library. It has the capability so that if you flicker it or bounce it, you're going to get to draw that many cards again and again. You don't want to flicker it like 2 times in a row, because then you're going to have the same number of cards. You won't draw anything. However, you can do this at the start of every turn and burn through a pile of cards in your hand, and then just simply refuel with 1 bounce effect. I could see this being really popular in Brago. Having said that, I have a Brago deck. I have a Museo deck. I see this was printed in Commander 2015 set. I have that as well. I've never put this card together yet with those. And honestly, I don't remember ever seeing anybody using it. And I expect that the 7 mana casting cost is the big reason for that.
Yeah. I think if you have a way to bring down artifacts, then it's great.
Right. Disappointingly, I don't know that this would be all that great in Sphinx Tribal, because most Sphinxes find ways to draw cards, and I think this is probably not as strong as a lot of the other Sphinx that you would put in a deck. I don't even think it's the best artifact Sphinx. That slot is reserved for my personal favorite, Sharding Sphinx.
All right, up next we got Golem Artisan. It's a 3/3 for 5. Artifact creature Golem. For 2 mana, target artifact creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Or, for 2 mana, target artifact creature gains your choice of flying, trample, or haste until end of turn. It's fine.
I love this card.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. He has been in plenty of my decks. There are handfuls of ways that when you start looking at Thopters and ways to make artifact copies, the key to this card is to recognize that it costs 2 for each of these effects, but there's no tapping. This is instant speed, so you can use it during your attack. You can use it while you're declaring blockers. You can pump up your creature multiple times using this. You can give your creature... it says the choice of flying, trample, or haste until the end of the turn. Well, spend 2, give it haste. Spend 2 more, give it flying. Then you're in. It worked. It works really well with virtually every single legendary creature that's also an artifact, because it means every time your legend hits the battlefield, you can spend 2 more to give it haste.
Oh, yeah.
And away you go. There are all kinds of options. Even in situations where you're looking at artifact creatures that are just kind of humdrum, your basic 4/4 for 4 or whatever, when you can give it flying, trample, or haste, that's awesome. There's the artifact that makes everything into artifacts.
Yeah. That's the one I was looking up. We've got Memnarch.
Thank you.
For 1 blue and blue, target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types.
Right. So if you happen to have a regular creature, well, now suddenly the Golem Artisan is helping along with that. There's another artifact that turns all your artifacts into artifact creatures that have power and toughness equal to the casting cost. Great. Now they have that, and they also can have flying. So you just, you pay a little more. And if you're concerned that paying 2 and then paying 2 again and paying 2 more is too much, remember, we're talking about a deck that's going to be primarily artifacts. You can easily churn through a ton of mana with various mana rocks, with all kinds of stuff like that. It doesn't hurt you at all. Don't be fooled. This card is better than you think it is. If you're looking at any sort of winning with artifact creatures, this card does great work.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad one of us was excited about it, to talk about it.
It achieves mayhem because it's part of the benefit is that it also says target artifact creature. So it doesn't even have to be your own. So somebody else gets out like a Silvermere or something like that. You can mess with people's combat so bad. Someone declares some kind of creature that's attacking, and then before the blocks are declared, you give it flying. So it doesn't even have to be your own creatures. It can be your opponent's creatures when they're attacking each other. I love cards like this. This is a lot of fun.
We've got our last uncommon.
Okay.
Yavamaya's Embrace. The first time I looked at this card, I thought, wow, what a piece of crap. And then I read it again. So it's a 8 mana enchantment aura. It's 5 green, blue, blue. Enchant creature. You control enchanting creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. So for 8 mana, well, in green and blue, especially nowadays, it's not too hard to get there. It's control magic. You just take control of a creature that isn't yours, and you give it +2/+2 and trample. You've got Agent of Treachery, which is 5 blue and a blue. And for an extra green, you give it +2/+2 and trample. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I opened this card in a pack of Apocalypse. So we're talking way back. The difficulty there is back then, if you were stealing a creature, you're doing it with control magic.
Right.
And control magic only costs 4. So for half of the cost, you're stealing the creature. So for those of us back then, we were looking at this, okay, so you want me to pay 4 more mana to give the creature +2/+2 and trample. And it's an aura. So if somebody destroys the aura, they get their creature back. Paying 8 mana is a lot to pay. You're going to pay 8 and hope it doesn't get countered. Then you're going to take the creature and hopefully do something with it. Not right away, because it doesn't have haste. So you're going to take the creature on your turn, because it's an enchantment and it doesn't have flash. It sits there until it's your next turn, and then you can attack with it, because that's the whole point of the trample part. So practically speaking, this one just never seemed to work out quite as well as I wanted it to.
Yeah.
And I put it in a ton of decks just because it is cool. I mean, come on. You're going to take their creature, make it bigger, make it tougher, and then beat them over the head with it. I just want this to work so bad, and it just doesn't quite get there. You need to have ways that you can sneak an aura onto a creature without having to pay the cost. But this card, relying on its own to do what you're looking for, go with the blue auras that just steal the creature, and just steal a really good one.
Yeah, and I think that is why things like, there's 2 cards in Standard right now, Kiorabes the Sea God, where on the 3rd chapter of the saga, you gain control of target permanent and opponent controls and you untap it. So, like, sure, you see it coming, but at the same time, when you gain control of it, it is yours until it dies.
Right.
Like, there's no removing an enchantment aura. And I guess Agent of Treachery is probably not in Standard anymore, but same thing, where it's just like you gain control of it.
Well, there's, I mean, you can just use
M20.
Is it Treachery?
It's true.
And Treachery, I mean, you even get to untap the mana after you've stolen it. If I'm remembering this right.
That's an aura, but when Treachery comes into play, untap 5 lands. You control enchanted creature.
Yeah. So if you have 5 mana, you get to take control of a creature, and you still have 5 mana. That's essentially
or
what's
more.
happening.
Like, you could play this so that you untap Temple of False God and you get more mana back, or Gaia's Cradle, or
the Urza's Mine, if you happen to have all of them. This is not the best version of theft. However, I will give you some serious cred points if this is how you're going to be taking other people's creatures, because that's just pretty cool. I mean, you know, this tree just bent down, wrapped its leaves around you and yanked you up, and now it's like forcing you to swing your sword at your buddies. I mean,
yeah.
Quite honestly, this is every big brother's dream, right? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? I mean, come on. I love torturing my brother, and this just fits right in with that.
So, before we go to our rares,
Yep.
Let's just take a break for a quick sponsor, and we'll get right back into it. This episode of Temple of Valspod is brought to you by the card Sift. Discourse got you down? Well, forget that nasty news and go Sift. Dwell longest on the thoughts that shine brightest. Alright, welcome back. So, up next, we've got our first rare. It's interesting. I was thinking about this deck the other day, and I decided against it, because it seems a bit of a pain.
Andy, you're killing me. Give me the card.
It is Vishkal, Blood Arbiter. It's a 5/5 for 4 white, black, so 7 mana. Legendary creature, vampire. So maybe I'll throw in a vampire deck. Or, I guess, my Teysa deck. Who knows? It's got flying, lifelink, sacrifice a creature, put X +1/+1 counters on Vishkal, Blood Arbiter, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. Next line of text, remove all +1/+1 counters from Vishkal to target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each +1/+1 counter removed this way. The fact that those both can be activated at instant speed is huge. It's a free sacrifice outlet. It's great. You could do this in response to somebody already killing something. You sacrifice it to just kind of make it fizzle, and then you get the X +1/+1 counters. If you get enough +1/+1 counters, you get to destroy indestructible creatures. It's pretty tasty.
It's really good. While you've been talking, I have been searching because I ran a Vishkal deck. It wasn't a commander deck.
Ooh.
The key with working with Vishkal isn't the first ability, it's the second ability. Remove all +1/+1 counters from Vishkal. Target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of the turn for each +1/+1 counter removed this way. Well, put that together with a little card called Horobi, Death's Wail. Now, Horobi is a 4-mana black creature. It's a 4/4 creature. It's a legendary creature spirit. It has flying. None of this is relevant. Here's the relevant part. Whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, destroy that creature.
Very nice.
Vishkal then reads, do nothing, destroy target creature. So you can wipe out all of your opponent's creatures, at least all of the ones that you can target.
Yeah.
Now, Horobi also doesn't specify whose creatures. So if your opponent has a way to target your Vishkal, well, then you've got some problems. But Vishkal does activate at instant speed. So if someone has a way, like if someone has a Prodigal Sorcerer or something that can tap to target something, well, that's great. They can tap to target Vishkal. Well, in response, Vishkal can then target all of the creatures that it can target. And then if another creature then says, okay, and on the stack, I'm also going to put this. Well, then you respond with, fine, Vishkal's just going to do it again. Because the cost is 0 and you can do it at instant speed. So he will always destroy all of the creatures that are out there before he can be destroyed, barring a way to kill him split second. He's going to get his ability off at least once. Yes, you do have to have Horobi out there to make this happen. But there are all kinds of interesting ways to make Vishkal work like that. And then the first ability, sacrifice a creature to get X+1/+1 counters on Vishkal. Well, all you need is a creature that you can sack and then have it come back into play. If you can have something that can create the loop, then you can put an infinite number of +1/+1 counters on Vishkal. He already has flying and lifelink. I know the urge is then to remove all of those counters and kill a creature, but honestly, if he's got flying and lifelink, just fly over, kill your opponent, gain that much life, and then you're all set and ready to go at the next opponent.
Especially where in so many of these aristocrat decks, you've got ways to create value out of gaining life, out of sacrificing your creatures to then gain life and then to get more value. It's these value engines that tie in to every single ability in Vishkal's text.
Right. I mean, Vishkal just adds to both ends of that equation. So
yeah,
in virtually every aristocrat's kind of build, Vishkal just sort of adds the insult to the injury.
Yeah, part of me wants to put this in my Tesa deck, but my Tesa deck tops out at generally 5, but I've also been adding more land in, so maybe.
I will say, having played Vishkal a number of times, the 7 mana cost is an issue. That's just a lot of mana, and he really needs to work the first time. You might get to cast him one more time, but now you're talking 9 mana for your guy, and you start wondering, will I ever have any mana to do anything else on the turn when I cast him? So that's something to keep in mind. Quite often you want to make sure you've got some sort of protection out, and some preferably protection that's free to put on him, because he's a lightning rod and he costs a lot. So, you want to take full advantage when you can.
Mm-hmm. And going on to our next rare, because that's the way these packs work. So we've got a rare left and 2 foils. I believe this is a new print. It's Sharum the Hegemon.
Oh,
is that new to this set? It's a 5/5 for 6. It's 3 white, blue, black. It's a legendary artifact creature, Sphinx. Flying. When Sharum the Hegemon enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Not even to your hand, to the battlefield.
So this card has been broken for a very long time.
Okay, I am wrong. It came out in Shards of Alara.
Oh yeah, this is Sharum has been was a scourge on a lot of decks for a very long time. We see Sharum a lot less now, just because it's a 6 casting cost commander. It's 3 different colors. There are other ways to do what Sharum does at a better cost. Simply put, Wizards keeps making better cards. So generally speaking, if you run across a player and Sharum is their commander, you really got to kill them first. Do not let them cast Sharum. Once Sharum hits, they are going to start looping artifacts. They're going to loop them from the graveyard to the battlefield. Once you get a sack outlet going, it just starts to happen. And I know, it looks innocent. because it's only when it enters the battlefield. So it only happens once, says the fool who doesn't realize that this is blue and black and white, and they all have ways to make this thing enter the battlefield over and over again. And, it will loop with a whole pile of cards that allow you to blink creatures. And
it's funny because I immediately was like, oh, I could make this work with Traxos, which is also just generally not a great card.
You could definitely make it work with Traxos. It would be a complete underutilization of what Shroom does. But yes, you can.
But that's my specialty.
Well, exactly. And I have no issue with that. I'm just saying that if you run into this card in the wild, we have now reached a point where the only people who still have Shroom decks are the ones whose Shroom decks are combos. And you can't let these live. You cannot. Don't do it. You will suffer the consequences. Take them out. Don't wait. I know this creature looks innocent. It's an artifact and a creature and a legend. And there's, so many ways to get rid of it. And it's slow and it's clunky and it costs 6, and just kill it. Trust me on this one. Just kill it. Just kill the person who's playing it. If you can't kill that card. You see it come out. That has to be your overriding factor. Somebody else better be doing something freaking amazing if you are not going all out to kill the Shroom player. You will regret it. You will regret it.
So our first foil comes to us from our sponsor. It's Sift.
Ooh.
I think we've talked about it enough.
Foily Sift.
For 3 and a blue, you draw 3 cards and discard a card at sorcery speed.
It's always a downside to me that with sorceries and instants that are foil. Because, you get to play it, you put it out there, ooh, it's shiny, and then poof, it's gone. And it just, I like my shiny cards to stay on the battlefield for a while. I want them to be permanent, but hey, you know what? I'll take a shiny Sift. Shiny Sift it can't be that bad.
So moving on to our very last card.
Okay.
It's a 1-mana artifact. It's Expedition Map. For 2 and tap, sacrifice Expedition Map. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. This is a Commander staple.
It's like this pack was put together to try and emphasize that the Urza lands are good.
Yeah. It's great if you are trying to find a specific land.
Like an Urza land.
Yeah.
Or Temple of the False God.
Yeah, I run a lot of basics, so it's fine.
Right.
But it does... If you are late in the game and you want to find that utility land or, Rogue's Passage, you need it to get things snuck through to get in for that final point of damage. It's perfect. Or if you are early game, nobody's really doing much, and you need just another land and you have the mana to spare, then yeah. Expedition Map goes in a lot of decks. I will be putting it in probably my next deck. So
I like the Expedition Map mostly because I tend to run a lot of non-basics. I like that I have the opportunity to find that strip mine when I desperately need it against an opponent. Or, it will let me, I can look for my Maze of Ith or Kessig Wolf Run. You can just keep naming them. And the fact that you can use this to find any one of them is very handy. I haven't once mentioned the idea that it helps solve your color screw problems if you're, finding one color and you're missing another. Ideally, I'm going to run this when I've got a ton of non-basics to do something special, and I'm looking for one or more of them in particular. So
it's very flexible.
Yeah.
And if you got Shroom out, or if you're about to put Shroom out, you can go search for another land.
Sure. There's all sorts of ways. I think I had Expedition Map running in my Glissa deck because it allows me to pull artifacts back out of my graveyard. So I believe it was in there. And it was just a nice way to give me some mana ramp because I was able to do it over and over again. When you're spending 3 mana to get any land that you want, you get the better lands. So I was searching for duels. I was searching all 3 Urzas. It tended to work out fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a foily one, hey, who doesn't want a shiny map?
Yeah, right?
As long as it's not an aluminum foil Expedition Map, because then it'll get torn, then there's the urge to wrap your sandwich in it.
So as these things usually go, people want to know what's your first pick. My first pick, I think, is pretty apparent. Vishkal. Hopefully either Crusader of Odric or, what was the other one? Defiant Salvager will wheel. What are you picking?
I mean, personally, I like the Goblin Artisan the best. However,
Golem Artisan.
Or the Golem Artisan. However,
yeah.
No one else is picking that. If you're looking at it for draft purposes, you're looking at the best overall. If I'm building a commander deck, Shroom is really good. It's just not really my style of play. And having already built Vishkal, I've got 4 Vishkals sitting in my collection.
I guess that's a better question. What of these cards would you be most excited to put in a deck, rather than what's your first pack one, pick one? What card are you excited to put in your deck? For you, it seems like Golem Artisan, because you love that card.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Golem Artisan, I think would probably be one of the ones I would put in there. However, if you fan the cards out and just said, Bruce, take any one of them, it's yours, I'm going to take the Foiling Map.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet card.
I know it's a common, but it is a card that can go in most decks. I mean, maybe not into your green decks quite as much, but it certainly works in most other decks. And the ability to search for any kind of land is something that's valuable in a lot of decks. And honestly, that's kind of what I look for.
I would say, for me, under that new question, either Vishkal or Expedition Map seem the highest likely to get into an Andy deck. This pack was alright. That's what I've heard most about this set, this master set, is that it's alright. It's nothing amazing, but it does a thing. And if you're playing it as limited, I hear the synergies are wild, but if you're opening it for Commander, you'll get a card here and there. I think, like I said, I've opened the other 2 Urza lands.
I think you really want to use this in the boxing league.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to start a boxing league. We just need to convince, other people we know to play and crack open a whole box and be prepared to crack open even more than that afterwards. All right, so do we have a sign off that we need to do?
Yeah. Let's pack this bag up and let's get on our merry little way. Thank you for listening. I am Andy.
I'm Bruce.
You can find me on the internet at Andy Weekend. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitch. Bruce, you've got Twitter.
I've got Twitter. I am Mana Burned on Twitter. That's not Mana Burnt. Mana Burned.
We are the Temple of the False Pod, where the plays aren't optimized, but they sure as heck are fun. Anyway, have a great night. Thank you for listening. See you next time.
See ya.
Hey everyone, Andy here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Temple of the False Pod. Just a few housekeeping things here at the end of the show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe and give us a review. It really helps out the show. And it'll show us what you like about our podcast. Also, we've got a Twitter and an Instagram. Our handle is FalsePodMTG, all one word. So be sure to follow us. Feel free to reach out to us there or drop us an email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com and tell us your favorite magic-related story. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again to you and to Bruce. He's Mana Burned on Twitter, and I'm Andy Weekend on Twitter and Twitch. We're Temple of the False Pod, where our decks aren't optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. Have a great night, and may your 5th land be the Temple.